Trade limitless on HMX, the next-gen decentralized perpetual exchange. Trade crypto, FX, and commodities with up to 1000x leverage on the Arbitrum network. Benefit from low fees, multi-asset collateral support, and cross-margin flexibility. Check them out.
From meme to utility, Floki has it all. NFT metaverse game called Valhalla. Floki University, DeFi, charity, and shopping. Floki is governed by the people, for the people. Floki, together, there is no stopping us.
Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield coming to you live from London. And I am super excited to bring you our next guest, who's someone I've been very fortunate to get to know over the last couple of years and consider a very good friend, but also just one of the greatest minds in the space. That's also, for something not a lot of people have managed to do in this space, broken that into the literary realms as well. So to stop myself waffling on like I normally do on my live shows, I am going to bring together a fine gentleman you're going to learn a lot from in the form of Quinten Francois. Quinten, how are you doing, my buddy?
Hey, Reese, I'm doing well. What about you?
I'm very good, mate. I'm very good. I've been very excited about this one, and we've got a packed house again. We've had just a brilliant time in Congress so far. And the viewers are going to work this out as we go on. This show is going to give people a little bit of something different because we're going to kind of encapsulate everything in this, from finding out a little bit about you, what it takes to write a successful book on Bitcoin, right? Which is, you know, a feat that not many people have covered off. We'll dig into that. We're also going to get some of your alpha based on altcoin gems as well, portfolio management. I mean, there's a lot to cram into this show, right? So a big good morning to everybody on this side. Maybe we can just kick things off for people that maybe aren't really au fait with your work. Give us a little bit about your background, Quinten.
Yeah, first of all, happy to be here, and hello everyone. Yeah, for those who don't know me yet, I've been in the crypto space since 2016, doing this professionally already since 2017, which has been a crazy roller coaster these several years. But I actually started with my YouTube channel, so I was one of the first ones who I'm actually consider myself a co-founder of Crypto YouTube. Actually, I think they should use that. You claim that title for sure.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah, there were only like a few ones back then. So that's how I started. And a few months later, I could already do it professionally. And actually, since that time, I've started doing like a lot of stuff. Like you mentioned, I wrote a book, which I'm really proud of. It's the best-selling Dutch book on crypto. I will show you as well. I have it here with me. So
it is a beautiful book.
Thank you. So that is also what I wrote. This was really like community work. You're not getting rich off writing books, but it gives you like more credibility, etc. So it opened a lot of doors. Started working with the government, giving talks to all kinds of organizations, co-founded an own startup as well in the meantime, doing some advisory work. So I'm actually doing like a lot of stuff in crypto, but my main thing is still like content creation.
I mean, I think just to touch on this really quickly and not to take us too far off topic, and I want to speak more about the book, but I think like you said there, I think the word credibility holds a lot of weight in cryptocurrency, right? Because whether it's from your rug pulls to things collapsing to what seemed like just an incessant and relentless attack on cryptocurrency for years by governments, institutions, and that, almost certainly doing it so that they could buy it back lower, but we're not going to get into that side of it today. But I think if you want to kind of educate people, if you want to bring... if you want to take an opaque space, if you like cryptocurrency, right, where it's not very clear, the regulations are a bit questionable, how do you kind of package that and take that to the masses in a way it's respected? Well, write a book, right? I think that just opens a lot of doors. And I think it's really interesting, right? Like you said, it's not about looking to make money with the book. It's about putting a cornerstone in the cryptocurrency community and in the world of cryptocurrency that says, look, this is legitimate. Here's a written word book. And I know it sounds mad. Of course, there's loads of good blog articles, lots of good websites, lots of good education material out there. But there's something about a book, right? Getting that published.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you summarized this really well. Like the biggest problem I had was like a lot of people want to learn about crypto, but they have no clue where to start. And like you mentioned, there are really good like sources. There are good blogs where you can read about crypto, good YouTubers, good content creators, good video courses, whatever. there is a lot of good stuff out there, but people don't know where to start. So they want to start with something that they know, traditional media. And like the most traditional media for a lot of people is like a fucking book. So
Yeah, it is. It is.
that's it. Like a hands-on thing. Like from a very known publisher, is the biggest one in Belgium as well. So it was in all bookstores, and I mean, like it's very low entry for people to start learning about crypto, because if they to listen to what the media is saying about crypto, they will only know less about it after hearing from the media about it than before it. So that's why I wrote the book. I thought like, okay, here is a hands-on thing for people if they want to start learning about crypto. Very low level, very like chapter by chapter, explaining the why, explaining what it is, explaining the future, explaining everything people need to know. So definitely I did it, of course, because it was bucket list material to write a book. So I really wanted to do that in my life. So I did it early on. So that's already a thick one. Maybe I'm writing more in the future. I don't know. But yeah, it's that's why I did it for myself, because it was bucket list material, but also because really I wanted to do some community work, give the people of Belgium and the Netherlands, Dutch-speaking parts of the world, like a hands-on thing to learn about crypto. And of course, writing a book, it opens a lot of doors, especially like in the Dutch market. For me, it opens so many new doors, and that is of course like an extra benefit from doing such a thing.
I mean, I suppose it's kind of what would you say? It's kind of it's a byproduct of writing a good book, because you could have written a book full of absolute nonsense and nobody would have really taken it seriously, right? So on one hand, it's a really kind of important cornerstone, not just for the Netherlands, not just for Belgium, right, but for the world of cryptocurrency. The more and more just irrefutable, proofwritten, hard copies, things like books and bits and pieces you can get into the space, the more and more it underpins the whole space in itself. So I think it actually, maybe you're being a little bit humble there, because I think it has really resonating effects worldwide for what it does. Every time that something like that goes into this space, that brings it up on the levels and argues against the critiques that it faces constantly, whether that be like Bitcoin's terrible for the environment because it uses energy. All right, forget about all the coal plants, forget about all the factories and that pumping out God knows what into the environment. Let's focus on how Bitcoin's bad for energy, right? You get all these attacks. So when you've got something that's got that kind of solid foundation, and the other side of it, what I found really interesting is that, like you say, you can have as much good information in blogs, YouTube videos, courses, paid or free, whatever. But the day that you write a really, really good and interesting book, the doors that start to open, right? The people that start to take it seriously, and like you said, on like a governmental level, right? On an institutional level, people reading this, people thinking, okay, now we've got this guidance as such, or something that has something of repute. How can we use it? What's the journey been like since then? Because you're someone that's really kind of on the forefront of looking at this, mass adoption thing that people kind of want or don't want in crypto, but personally I think is really important for the space. So what is it that you're seeing on that kind of level that big institutions, governments, bodies like that are looking to engage with you to find out more about Bitcoin?
Super interesting question. Of course, several years ago there was absolutely nothing. So you saw that starting, especially, I would say 2020, 2021. Yeah, of course, there was like a bull market in 2021, but the year before it really started like picking up the interest in that. And more politicians starting inviting me. And it also was like a funny thing because like a friend of mine, he had like a meeting with a politician, and he said like, yeah, you can join me because I'm like I know some details about stuff he doesn't know, etc. So he brought me there. This politician didn't know about it, and if I meet up with politicians, I'm always bringing some books, giving it to them for free.
True.
So I was there. I presented myself, gave my book, and this guy said like it was like someone in the Parliament of Belgium, and he said like, "Oh, I read this book already. It's really nice, etc." So it's funny how indeed you come across people that you don't expect, but they for example already read my book. I had it several times already, and it's really really interesting. So you see that it's getting more and more interest from these people. And we had this meeting with this guy. This guy introduced us to some other politicians. So we had talks with quite a lot of people. The president of the Socialist Party. We had like a meeting with the prime minister. of Flanders, like Minister President it is actually, and some other people like the President of the Senate as well, like a lot of very high end people, and you see that the interest is really picking up. If you would say like a few years before that, let's say 2017, 2018, they were still laughing with us. But then in 2020, 2021, suddenly they wanted to know about it. They didn't know a clue about it. They literally asked like the most basic questions. One of these you just already mentioned, the one, for example, with the energy usage of Bitcoin, or like Bitcoin is for criminals, all this kinds of stuff, right? So then we need to debunk that, and we need to start like very low level with these people. But these doors open a lot of new doors again, and like things start rolling. Did some things in the media, for television, for documentaries. Journalists are picking up on that as well, and I think like writing a book is also opening a lot of doors for like getting credibility, for giving your opinion in the media, right? Because otherwise you're just like a content creator or like this YouTuber guy. But now you have like the best-selling Dutch book on crypto with a legitimate, the biggest publisher in Belgium. So, and also like companies, for example, they want to start digging in NFTs. They want to see what blockchain can do for them. So I got booked for talks here in Belgium as well. So yeah, it did like a lot of stuff, and I think without this book, it wouldn't have been possible. And that's the big difference, and it's a byproduct of writing a book, and that's really, really amazing. And I think like if there would be enough people doing the same thing in their own region, then we're making good steps towards the goal of this, and towards like a good education for the people, for politicians, and the people that influence the people, actually, like the citizens of a country. So
and actually I have to kind of pop in on that point, because I think you said two really important things there in terms of the word influence. It's not necessarily about influencing the people in the space that want to know more about it. It's how can you influence the people in the space who are being very naive towards it, right? Now, if you imagine this, because you have to think of it, I think what people don't do necessarily when you're very passionate about something, it's very easy to ignore the argument from the other side of what you're trying to project, right? And what I mean by that is, you say, we sit here now and we know there's good content in the space. We know there's brilliant people in the space. There's great minds in the space. But if I'm trying to convince a government official who's very naive to this kind of measure, and he says, okay, where's your proof? And you say, go on this website or watch this YouTube video, right? Or here's my blog. You get laughed out of the room. If you say, here's a print copy of a book from one of the number one publishers in Europe, they will take note of that, right? But on the flip side, and I know you're a very smart person, I know you're a very good writer, but on the flip side of that, there's obviously a hunger for this kind of content, right? You wouldn't get to that reward, you wouldn't get that accolade of the best, of the best-selling Dutch book in cryptocurrency without there being the hunger from people to understand it. So the next side of things I want to kind of look at is objection management, right? So like you said, a lot of high-ranking people that you speak to about this stuff are coming in with the most base level, almost offensive levels of kind of like, oh, Bitcoin's bad for the environment, or
like a 2013 mindset, I call it. It's like a 2013 understanding. That's what they have, like what they heard in 2013. That's it.
Exactly. Because it's the safety net effects, right? The larger the corporation, the larger the government body, the larger any vehicle, the more inefficiencies typically exist within it and the longer it takes to change them. Yeah. So people have this kind of flight to safety of, we know the banking systems have been messed up for ages. Are we doing anything to fix it? Not really. The kind of idea is there and with the need is there and you see the inefficiencies, but so many people's wages rely on it. The corporate structures rely on it. It's such a big undertaking. Unless they absolutely have to, what's the catalyst? Well, actually the catalyst becomes these small, almost guerrilla warfare type units of people within a space they're really passionate about, taking this message to the masses, but packaging it in a way that it's very hard to argue with it, right? And I think that's what a book does so well. It's so powerful, right? Now, I wonder if I looked at it, for example, and I'm thinking, do you know what? Quinten's inspired me here. I've got some information on the space. I've got some stuff that I want to do. I want to sit down and I want to write a book. I want to take all this great content I've built over the years and I want to put that into a hard copy thing. How do you even go about approaching that? Because I'm sure there's going to be people that are watching this, right, that are going to be inspired to do this.
Well, to be honest, there was not too much preparation for me. It was like all
Mhm.
sitting there in my head. And I had been thinking about it the months before I started writing it. I thought about it a bit. Actually, it was like a suggestion of my mom.
Mhm.
She said like maybe you should do this because I felt at that point it was like a very very hard time. The bear market of 2018 just passed, and then the months after that, I started writing it in April 2019 or so.
Mhm.
But there were very hard times, obviously, and I just lost 97% of my portfolio because of stupid mistakes, bad altcoins I picked. We will talk about that later on. But yeah, for me, it was not like I had to think too much about it. It was already in my head, and of
Mhm.
course, because it was like digesting. Sorry for a few months. I already had like everything in my head and just started
Mhm.
writing it. Of course, I had like, okay, chapter 1 is this, chapter 2 is this, chapter 3, and like the general chapters, then like the sub chapters, and then I just started writing it and went over it a few times, and that's it. But of course, it's a long process. It takes a
Mm.
lot of time, obviously, um, but yeah, I think if you want to do something like this and you're like an expert in something, it's not too hard to do.
Mhm.
Of course, it's like a lot of work, but I wouldn't say it costed me like blood, sweat, and tears or so. It wasn't just like, okay, I started typing this stuff, and then sometimes I didn't do anything for a week, just like letting it digest for another
Mm.
week, because that is something that I found really important. You wrote like a whole article in a day or so, a whole chapter, sorry,
Mhm.
in a day. Then I think it was important to let it digest for a week and
Mhm.
then go over that again and like look for new ideas or look for stuff to add, etc. So that is how I actually did it. I only wrote like a few hours every week,
Mhm.
and then the week after I did a review that chapter and so on. So, but in
Mhm.
total, it takes a long time, especially when you work with a publisher. That is
Mm.
maybe the hardest part of them all, I
Mhm.
found. Is like doing all the stuff with the publisher, and that is you send it over like 10 times to the person who's doing the review, and it's also very slowly. So in total it took another 10 months from the moment I signed my contract with the publisher.
Wow.
It took another 10 months before it was in the bookstore. So yeah, really, I would say like if you want to do something like this, it's just like s- start with it. Just like
Mhm.
get your idea, get your chapters in your head,
Mhm.
write them down. Maybe like write your sub chapters if you already know, and then
Mhm.
just start and take your time for it. Don't try to write it in 1 week
Yes.
because
Yeah.
it's really like exhausting, and you also need
Mhm.
time in between to let it digest
Mhm.
and new ideas will come in the meantime. So that is my best tip I can give.
A good process as well, I would imagine. Right? I mean, I've never actually written a book, but before I got involved in financial markets, and especially before I got involved in cryptocurrency, I used to start or buy and sell companies, right? And
Mhm,
I found that actually, as I was going through that, I kind of started to keep a journal as more of kind of a learning mechanism about, pros and cons of doing it, things that you learn in areas, legal ideas, loopholes, bits and pieces that you have, right? Regulatory compliance and bits and pieces. And I found that actually, like, just the process of writing that stuff down, like, I had no idea to put it in a blog. I had no idea to put it in a book, right? But actually, fun enough, I found a lot of my kind of journals, and I was writing a lot of these by hand years ago, right? Just little leather journals that I've kept. And I found it really, really interesting to go back through it. And I realized at the time it gave me a really, really good outlet, right? To kind of express my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions, as well as kind of what I saw were inefficiencies in the market, what I saw were opportunities in areas that existed. One of the really interesting things about reviewing that information now, well over a decade, maybe 15 years later, is the fact that I look back on some of that stuff and I'm like, good God, you had a really good understanding of that then. And actually, what you were seeing as emerging markets back then, like, I won't bore you all with it now, but especially with areas like surveying and construction, right? There were these emerging markets happening in places like Europe and bits and pieces like that, and that just weren't really getting picked up on in Britain. And I look back on it now and think, wow, if I'd taken that data seriously, if I'd taken the time to put it into a book or a blog or just something, right, that actually, if I'd stayed in that field, then that would have really paid a lot of dividends for me later. And also, it allowed me to kind of, review my own thoughts. Like you said, you put something down in a small section, you review it a day, 2 days, a week later. And then you're thinking about it in two different areas, right? Am I clearly communicating what I'm trying to say? Is what I'm saying, accurate, basically? But also then thinking about, would a lay person, like someone that doesn't have a lot of experience in the industry, especially with Bitcoin, right? Am I communicating this in a way that people understand?
That's important for
You know,
sure.
and
Yeah.
it's difficult. So you didn't work with like a ghostwriter or any. You wrote your book. You and the publisher then worked together through iterations to make it and kind of tweak it, and then it went to publishing.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote it entirely myself, and there was like one person, I don't know the English word for it, but the person who reviews the book from the publishing company, and she
Copyright,
didn't. Sorry.
like either a copywriter or you would
Yeah,
typically.
could be. But yeah, she this person was a total noob in crypto. She didn't know anything about it. So she was actually like the perfect person to do something like this,
Perfect.
because like sometimes you definitely you try to write it having in mind who you're writing this for, right? So you're writing this for the person, for someone who doesn't know anything about crypto and really is doing the very first step in this space or learning about it. Sometimes you're really like skipping things in your mind, even though you know who you're writing for. Still, you're going to write stuff down that people who don't know anything about crypto just don't understand. And then, of course, it's very valuable to have someone like this reviewing this and saying like, you need to explain this more because I don't understand anything about it. And that's very valuable. So yeah, that is I think like the maybe like the most valuable thing about like having it reviewed is like getting this language for the right person. I think that is really important indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, as somebody that teaches, I'm not teaching people about Bitcoin, and I've got much better people in the space to do that, like yourself, right? But in terms of what I do teach, in terms of technical analysis of markets and charts, right, I find that actually one of the difficult things to do sometimes is to really decant what you know for what other people don't. And what I mean by that is, I'll say things in passing without even really thinking they're complex because of the amount of time that I've spent doing it, the amount of time in the market, the people that you work with, that somebody over there's like, hang on a minute, mate, what are you even going on about? What's like an OB or an FVG? And what are you talking about this being a key? What's an overextension? I mean, it's all just nonsense, right? It's not when you're talking to people in the space, but making that for an audience, of people that are really desperate to understand it, but you don't want to wash them away with kind of too much technical stuff. I think is really important. I think somebody much smarter than me once said, you could basically teach any subject to anyone as long as you can find something that they can relate to within it. Yeah. As soon as we feel like we relate to a subject matter and we have interest in it, our mind opens up to this beautiful learning vehicle, right?
Yeah,
The
that's
minute we
nice.
feel threatened by it, the mind does the opposite. It goes, oh, this is stupid. I don't want to know this anymore, because you feel like you're disconnected from it. But I don't want to waffle on anymore, right? What I would recommend is if anybody out there does speak Dutch or Belgium and you have a good handle of Dutch, please do grab this book and let us know inside the nest what you think of it. Also, if there's anybody out there that wants to translate it into English for me, that would be most appreciated as well.
I would appreciate that as well.
If there's any ghostwriters out there that just want a real challenge to just convert this into English, please do.
I wanted to get it translated, but then the bull market of 2021 started, and I was like, "Fuck it! I don't want to spend any time on this right now. There's enough good books in English about crypto. I let it like this for now. But if I do like a reworked version, probably next year,
Definitely,
because there's already some stuff outdated, then I will get it translated in English.
Brilliant. I love that as well. And just so that everybody can see firsthand, these wonderful people like Quinten who love giving to the space and who are very selfless in doing so, that changes when a bull market kicks in, right? So that self-preservation of, I'd love to rewrite this book for you in English. However, I need to just go and kill this bull market, which is brilliant. So just a few comments down here. We get a lot of appreciation for your stuff, Quinten. But this one from a dear friend of the nest, Erica, who's been present, is always such an ever-present in these shows, a lot so on my live streams as well. Always comes with these amazing questions. And I love this, which is, we cannot wait to hear about discovering undervalued altcoins, right? So while we've had this wonderful section of really digging into you as the literary powerhouse that you are, and all the stuff with the book and how good the book has been for the space, we all know that the real degens in all of us want to know how you are picking and navigating this sea of altcoin gems. So let's throw our attention onto that for us, Quinten. it's such a big area, right? But where to start?
Yeah.
You technically, you're very proficient. You understand the market dynamics. You look into the fundamentals of projects and that as well, right? So let's just say let's look at 20 minutes, right? And then we leave ourselves a nice 10 minutes at the end for a Q&A. In 20 minutes, how much alpha can we drop on everyone to show them, give them some tangible process of how you look at these projects and how you pick the winners that you pick?
Yeah, it's pretty complex, but let's try to explain this as easy as possible. But I think like there's a few things important. First of all, the amount of risk you want to take is one important one.
Mm-hmm.
If, for example, myself in 2017, my first bull cycle, I was like really exposed to a lot of risky things. So that pays off to the upside, but it really destroys you to the downside as well. So that is like a balance or like an exercise you need to make. Like, okay, how much risk do I want to take here? For me personally, right now, it's not too much risk I want to take. Like most of my holdings are in the safer stuff, so that's also some kind of portfolio management we're talking about right here. But so I don't want to take too much stuff anymore, but I also want to be on the next big thing. How do you find this next big thing? I think one important thing or not to do is very important. If you already know what not to do, that's also very, very valuable. So what not to do is to chase hypes. I think that is a really, really, really important one, because by the time you're hearing about something and it has pumped so much already, then it's just not worth the risk, because it can just go down a lot already. So then it's a matter of, okay, you need to discover it early on. Early on is, of course, relative. It can be like early on in terms of it still has a small market cap, and you decide like, okay, this market cap can go to this amount, for example. Or literally early on in the cycle, this can also be the case. Like, for example, now it's still pretty early in the cycle. So even though right now some stuff already pumped 5x, for example, in the past 2 months, there are some really good altcoins out there that did this. I would still say like, okay, we're still so early in the cycle that you can still take that risk and buy an altcoin if you really like it. But I would not recommend you to do that when we're already deep into 2024. Bull market is really start gearing up. Then I would say, okay, just don't chase the hyped stuff anymore. It's not the best moment anymore to get into that. So I think this is a really important thing that people could look at. Is like, where are we in the cycle right now? What is the valuation of this project? But I think it's also very important to look at certain trends in the markets, and to look for altcoins that are within this niche, within this trend that is going on. Discuss a lot of trends, but I think like an obvious one right now for the coming years is AI. So you can have a look at lists of AI altcoins, for example, in the crypto space that combine blockchain with AI, and have a deeper dive into these ones. I think that is a very good way to do it. So determine the trends in the coming years. Look at where we are in the market cycle. We're right now pretty early, and then the valuation. I think that is 3 things that you can definitely dive deeper into, and then determine, okay, should I do it or should I not?
Nice. So you're kind of, if we were to look at this as kind of as a system, right? So I know, like I say, my kind of specialty, right? And I do invest in some altcoins. I invest in some traditional market assets, bits and pieces like that as well. But it's certainly not something that I really project out there too much, because I don't actually think I'm the best at it, right? Because my focus, my area of specialty is price action trading, right? But do you know what I really felt? And we've had a few really, really cool people on here talking about altcoins. And I just think that for me, I felt like I've kind of traded my way through bull markets, right? Now, don't get me wrong, that's fine. But actually, kind of comparing my performance over multiple bull and bear markets, there's not really a big swing for me in terms of my returns, right? Meaning that basically it makes sense because I have a system that it really isn't trend dependent, right? So for me, that was good. But actually, I also look at that as well, and I think, okay, am I really maximizing my potential gains here? And I'm not. because it's fine to have that underlying consistency. But this, for this market, I promised myself, look, I'm going to become more proficient, better educated at how to invest in low caps, for example, not just low caps, like you say, but to have a portfolio that's spread out, high risk, low caps, right? Then you've got your kind of layer ones, you build these kind of baskets and you build this kind of balanced portfolio, but then also offsetting that risk management side of things and portfolio risk by having more secure and stable assets that they're kind of basketed against, right? So if you get a hot run in one, you've got that kind of counter trade, you've got that hedge. And something that, from speaking to people like Shul and people we had on, we had the guy from Alt Crypto Gems, who was a really, really top guy. And he was saying, about this idea of, okay, the low caps are your real kind of high risk. Yeah. And you might have 10, 20 projects in there that really interest you. But as long as you're approaching your risk management in the right way, that your expectation for your high risk assets are basically that money's going to zero. Yeah.
I like that one. That's always something that I say as well. Like, expect your small caps to go to zero. They can go 100 to do 100x in the coming bull market, or they can just go to zero. But that's a good way to approach it for sure. But also treat your portfolio that way and make sure that 80% or 70% of your portfolio is in safe stuff, like the big ones, and then you can afford that risk. Don't put 100% of your portfolio in high risk, high reward, small caps, of course. But go on, Reese.
No, I mean, it's brilliant. It kind of cements the point, exactly the kind of point I'm trying to make. In terms of managing portfolios, managing the way that you control the money. First of all, I think something that people make a big mistake for is they're putting money that they don't have into their portfolios. Right now, that doesn't mean people at the very worst end of that spectrum is you have just got people that are just either borrowing money or taking money they need to survive and putting it into portfolios. Please don't do that. I think one of the worst things about the crypto Twitter space, about the social media space, is almost like there's just this, the flood of people that turn up with no real kind of history that are like, yeah, I bought $1,000 of this and now I'm flying in a private jet everywhere, right? This is a long game, everyone. This isn't the only bull market that's going to happen. In the bear market, we spend so much time telling everyone, train yourself, improve yourself, educate yourself, be ready for the bull run. And everybody spends time thinking it's never going to come. And then when it does come, all of a sudden it brings out this real degen gambler in everyone, right?
Yeah.
So without the education, it is very hard to do it. But I suppose off the back of that, a real key takeaway, something I really want to stress, which is so important when investing or trading, is just, treat it like you would a trip to the casino, right? Treat it as if you're having a night out with friends and you're saying to yourself, do you know what? If I'm going to take $100 for this night out, or $50 or $20, I don't expect to get it back. I'm just doing this for the pleasure of doing it, for the understanding of doing it, right? Now, that allows me to go out to a casino for the night, to have a good time with my friends. If I lose the money, it's already expected that it's gone, right? What it doesn't make me do is mean that I've taken next month's mortgage payment out, right? Or I've taken a chunk out of my pension fund, or I've taken it out of my tax allocation, gone down the casino, blown it, and then spend the next months in this perpetual state of anxiety, hating myself for doing it, right? So yeah, I just think that's a really good point that you brought up there. It's just very, very important to be safe within this space, and you can be. And if you're not at the place you want to be now in terms of your investment knowledge, don't worry about it. Start with a very, very small bag, see how you get on, and say to yourself, do you know what? I'm going to double down on my education, and in the next bull run, I'm going to be sick, right? Don't want it too fast.
Yeah, I think that you're touching on a very good point, and I think a lot of people expect them to do like 100x of their portfolio in the first cycle. And the thing is, like, you need to be realistic, and you're never going to play it perfectly. Your first cycle is going to be like a lot of mistakes. Just learn from them and do your risk management. If you do like a lot of risk management, you can like limit these mistakes that you're going to make anyway. We're all made like a lot of mistakes already in crypto. It's just a matter of doing better and better. Because in my first, like I already told you, in my first cycle, I lost 97% of my portfolio. That is because like most of my holdings were in one altcoin. That altcoin blew up during the bull market. I didn't rebalance my portfolio in time, and I wrote it all the way down to zero. So I lost this 97% of my portfolio, but I learned a lot. And then my second bull cycle, 2021, I knew like, okay, during this year or during this bull market, I'm going to rebalance my portfolio once in a while. If like a small altcoin that has high risk, high reward, if this is outperforming a lot and is taking a certain dominance in my portfolio, I'm going to sell a part, put it to Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever big cap, or maybe just cash, whatever.
Mhm.
But I think that is just like you need to play it better and better. I didn't play it perfectly as well last cycle. Nobody did. Probably
Mhm.
nobody did, or you're very lucky. But it's just a matter of, okay, doing it better and better every
Mhm.
cycle and sticking to your strategy. And
Mhm.
I think that is really important, like a combination of um, doing good risk management, picking
Mhm.
the right altcoins, and not chasing hypes, of course.
Mhm.
Um, I think these are really important things, and having like an entry strategy, exit strategy is also super important because people are not prepared for having a 100x of their portfolio. Mentally, you're not prepared for this shit, to be very fair, but because it's like it goes so quickly, and people have no certain levels where they want to start cashing out. So
Mhm.
if you don't have like an exit strategy that is based on several factors,
Mhm.
then you're probably going to end up not cashing out anything or nearly anything because you always want to go higher and higher and higher because the
Yeah.
greed, I
Oh,
don't need to tell you, Reese, the greed in a bull market is
it's,
insane. And
it, is.
it gets to everyone. It gets
It
to
does.
everyone.
It
Yeah.
does. You know, no one's infallible for this, right? And
Yeah,
Quinten's raised a couple of
definitely.
really, really good points here, right? One, when you're in it, when you're in the euphoria, the greed, everything's going up, you are made to feel like the idiot a lot of the time. If you're cashing out, if you're taking profit, if you're moving into stables, right? Just but I think a lot of this problem stems back to what we're talking about. It's education and experience, right? And actually, the really key thing I want to talk about there is like you said about making the mistakes, right? The mistakes, people shy away from their mistakes, and crypto Twitter, there's nothing worse for it. You will see people, hey, here's a trade setup idea. Trade setup idea goes wrong. You look on the timeline, they've deleted it. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Please just help people understand in this space that it's not about being right all the time. And if you want
Yeah.
to try and be right all the time, you are absolutely done, right? Look at
Yeah.
someone like Burb. He knows his trading system so intimately. He knows 7 out of 10 times he's most likely going to lose a trade, right? But he knows that those three winners, because of his risk to reward profile, will return him so much more than the losers. He just has to sit down and press play on that system. Sounds easy, but it's not, right? And I tell you this right now, in my life, especially in trading, but in a lot of other areas, I have learned so much more from my mistakes and what's gone wrong than I have for what's gone right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not journaling that, if you're not learning from that, and if you're not implementing those changes, you are stuck still and you'll keep making the same mistakes. And the people that you look at in the market that are making returns who you think are lucky, they're people that are outworking you, right? And they're working smarter than you are. And I think that's so, so key. But before I go off down a psychological rabbit hole that I am not qualified at all to speak to anyone about, right? They had this amazing question again from Erica, who's absolutely smashing on them tonight. So, what's your strategy for scanning altcoins, right? Now, you've dropped some real alpha in avoiding the hype, right? Looking at what you're doing, implementation of looking at the valuation, right? Your correct risk management approach, looking for trends as well, like we did with AI, and also understanding where we are in the cycle. But when you're scanning the market and you're thinking, right, are you looking for strength, right? Are you comparing alts against each other? What's your kind of process?
Yeah. I think like scanning altcoins, in terms of like finding these gems, you can simply find them online. Like I said, for example, if you want to look for AI altcoins, just look for lists of AI altcoins or type it in on Twitter even.
Mhm,
Um, you will find them. So just make like a watch list of them and then start researching them. Like do
mhm,
deep dives into them. Like look up articles, look up some statistics, look them up on CoinGecko,
mhm.
and do a fundamental analysis of that. And that might sound. Oh, my camera is shutting down for some reason.
It's all right. We've still got some good audio from you as well. I think it just kind
Jesus
of
Christ!
hypes up the. I think it hypes up the tension for the viewers
Wait, let,
finding
let
out.
me let me. You still hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, still hear you fine, mate. Yeah,
Okay.
no, don't worry. We've had Chrome's been a little bit twitchy with a few things for me
Okay.
today as well, but we can still hear you fine, mate.
Okay. Let me put in my my webcam. I'm going to look if I can turn it on. Don't think my webcam is connected. Maybe you should talk for 1 minute, Reese, about some random stuff, and I'll be back with my webcam.
You know, there's no problem for me talking about random stuff, Quint. So let me just jump on why Quinten's bringing this up, and kind of really diving on this. One thing I did want to say, I was just about to brilliant, come back, Quinten. They miss you already. 5 seconds of me talking, and people are begging for you to come back to the chat. So. One thing I did want to say is Quinten mentioned about putting lists together of these assets and asset classes. Right now, for anybody that knows Jimmy from our Discord, who's a wonderful trader and also our own in-house psychologist as well. His handle is your NLP coach. If you are inside the Discord, find Jimmy. If you're not inside the Discord and you're watching this, get through in the description below. Come and join us. It's all completely free, right? You get free access to all of our paid memberships. You get free access to everything that we do, right? But go and find Jimmy in there in one of the chats. He is a master at putting together these lists, and he actually shared an AI one with me earlier in the season. So ask him about that because he's got some great hacks on how you can put them together. But from now, we are going to pop this back just so it's not all about you, Quinten. I just want to show you. Look,
I look purple with my webcam. What is this?
You do. It's all right. I think it's
holy shit!
It's probably just the excitement, I would imagine, from all of the alpha that you're just about to drop on these folks, right? So
I looked a lot healthier on my professional camera, but anyway, there's something wrong with it.
You look a little bit like you're off the Ribena advert at the moment. It's a strong look, and you're pulling it off, right? But I'm just to show you, we admire you too, BC. That's from Ariana. You absolute legend. I love you, right? But before I rattle on, let's get back to your thing. Let's go back into this question that we had back up here from Erica, right? Which is the strategy for scanning your altcoins and what you're looking for.
Yeah, so I touched on a few points already, and I think I was talking about like the fundamental analysis, which sounds easier than it is. But I think if you're looking for make a decision whether to buy something or not, or whether to decide something is undervalued or not, you should be able to do like a basic fundamental analysis. I think a few important things regarding cryptocurrencies to determine for them is to look at it's always important for any company, but to look at the team, for example. Is it a good team, yes or no? Look at the competitors, make an analysis of these competitors and say like, okay, these competitors are, for example, worth 1 billion, and you find a cryptocurrency that has a market cap of 50 million. Then you think like, okay, they have like better partnerships maybe, or they have a really good team. Then you can already think like, okay, it might be undervalued. It might catch up towards later on that 1 billion as well, the gem that you found. So looking at these market caps, very important, but also like looking at the circulating supply of tokens, making sure that there's not like a huge inflation of tokens or inflow of tokens coming in all the time. I think that is also a really important one. And of course, trends. The trends, like for example, the AI trend that you have, or for example, DeFi that I personally think will come back at some point pretty soon. That's one of the trends that I'm looking at myself. But these things are really good niches within crypto, and I think that's also important to do your fundamental analysis about that. So I think these are like a few things that I'm touching on right now. But of course, concept is important, partnerships is important, the community that they have is also really important, because crypto is still, let's call it like it is. It is still like a lot of hype and a lot of marketing rather than real use cases or real usage. So I think like a combination of all these factors within the concept, the team, the token, the valuation of the project. Please also look at how well they are reaching community, or how big the community is, how vocal the community is, how many influencers are behind it as well. So these are a few things that I'm personally looking at. So if I come across a good coin, for me, it's mostly just on Twitter, because I'm constantly on Twitter and I see stuff passing by. I see some other KOLs giving a short analysis about what something is. If I find it interesting, I put it on my short list, and then I started like digging deeper into it. It's most of the times it's for a few months on my altcoin, on my short list, before it makes it to my portfolio or not, of course. But that is like a very brief overview of how you should scan for these altcoins and how to decide whether or not you should buy it.
Yeah, I think they're really, really good, important points there as well. And actually, I'm not going to steal this idea of if it is my own, because I took this from Shul on our session together on altcoins as well. But to kind of mirror what Quinten's telling us here, especially when you're towards these low caps, right? Look at the community, right? Join the Discord, join the Telegram. How active are they? Are they sharing lots of messages? Do they have a really powerful group behind them? And look, we're partnered with Floki, right, and TokenFi, but we're incredibly brutal with our due diligence with who we partner with anyone. And I tell you this right now, one of the things that just blew us away with them, with Floki, was their community. Their community are unbelievable, right? These people,
for sure.
because they understand it, right? Look to these people, look for knowledgeable people, look at who's endorsing it. Are they just shilling an odd ad here and there? Are they taking the time to understand it? Are they involved in the community? Do they know it, right? You can learn so much from a community with how it engages with its people. I think that's a really big factor. I mean, there's been so much alpha there. But one thing I did want to jump in on as well is that Quinten said about the fundamental analysis and how important it is. I've been actually within the next couple of days, I think it's 2 years that I've been with Burb and the Nest, right? Before I went from being an independent trader to coming over to working with these guys. And one of the things that I found incredibly useful, not just the team that I've got around me, who I'm incredibly grateful for, and I respect all of them massively, but my introduction, my kind of education into fundamental analysis, right? We've got a guy, Chris, who's Milky. You would see him on Twitter as Milky Gem Hunter. Come and tag Chris and come and get involved in the fundamental section on Discord. Like I say, you just sign up. It's all free, right? There's no there's no credit card, there's nothing. Go and absolutely break Chris for me, please. Ask him questions on processes, right? Because this guy is just this bundle of knowledge, right? And literally, he loves it. He's the kind of guy, you ask him a little question like, Chris, can you just give me a short answer on this? Bang, you got this essay back full of alpha, right? Dig deeper on some of the points that Quinten's mentioned. Really, really dive into, okay, guys, well, what's his scanning routine? How does he do it? He audits a lot of companies as well. He has this in-depth knowledge. And one of the things I love about the Nest is that I get access to these people. And actually tonight on a Monday evening, we have our whole analysts call. We bring together our fundamental team, our price action team, our trading team in its entirety. And we look at the markets, we look at what's going on. And on the fundamental side, I've learned so much from these people. So if you are in the Discord or if you're not, get yourself involved in it and go and do me a favor. Go and break Chris over the next few days, right? Just really load him up because the guy loves it. And there's so much that you can learn on a fundamental aspect. Now, I'm just going to look at a couple of questions here, Quinn, because we've got maybe sort of like 5-6 minutes left before we need to start shutting this down. So let's see if we've got anything in here, because there's so many questions, lots of which, yeah, really good point here from Gio, actually, another long-term member of ours, right? Selling into strength and buying during weakness sounds counterintuitive, but from experience, it's right. And it is, right? I think for me, charts often represent human psychology, right? We're all very, very late to buy into something because we want that extra safety net. And then we tend to have that FOMO of going too much into something without enough knowledge of it. Very, very difficult to buy these crashes and sell these pumps, right? But like Quinten said and been very honest about, you know, he sat there and watched 97% of his portfolio just evaporate in his first end of bull market, beginning of bear market, right? Did that happen in the second run? No. Why didn't it happen? Because you hurt so much from when that happens the first time. You either do one of two things. You either proclaim crypto as a scam and you disappear into the ether, right? Or you turn around, accept that a lot of the failings you had are your own, and you say to yourself, do you know what? What I did really well is I built the portfolio really well. What I did really badly was sell any of it. Mm-hmm. So then look at your risk management, right? And look, I know people look for these buzzwords. People are looking for this silver bullet that slays everything. It just isn't out there. There's a very famous trader called Larry Williams, who's really kind of the godfather of a lot of technical analysis. And there's this quote that I love from him. He was a multiple Robbins Cup winner, which is basically the World Cup of trading. Yeah. And on his second
Is there a World Cup of trading?
Yeah, the Robbins Cup. Yeah, so like technical trading, right? So, and it's all about return at the end of the year, right? You do an entire season. And they turned around to him and said, you know, you just must be one of just the most gifted traders that's ever lived. And his answer, I thought, was brilliant. He said, actually, I'm a very, very average trader, but I'm an exceptional money and risk manager, right? And I think that goes to show you that you don't need that. Like someone like Burb, for example, you know, comes in for criticism for this, criticism for that. What does he do? Sits in the background, takes his losses, takes his wins. he's the best part of £1 million up this year, right? I mean, that's literally just from following his system, minimizing his losses, maximizing his gains. How does he do it? Through a tried, tested, and back tested system. So I think that's a really, really good point there from Geo. And you have to just understand your strategy, and you have to not be afraid to execute on it, right?
I think it even doesn't matter if it's about like TA, for example, technical analysis trading, like active trading, or simply investing. It's the same thing. If you trade on actively, you also want to sell on support and buy at support, and sell at resistance. That's like the very basic of trading and how to make money. And like just follow the trend is another good one, I think. Then the odds are always like a lot higher than 50-50 if you follow the trend of that moment. But it's the same with investing, but then on a higher time frame. So you want to buy when nobody believes in it anymore, when there's a bear market, when the media is saying for the 1000th time like crypto is dead. That's when you want to buy. When your brother or your sister is calling and asking you if you're okay because your portfolio should be like that is fucked by that time, then you should buy. And when there's nobody texting you DMs anymore, like, hey, should I buy crypto right now? Well, these are really good indications of when to buy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think like when to sell is like, when everyone is texting you, like when everyone is expecting their €100 investment to become €1 million in 2 days, then you want to start selling. Or when your hairdresser or taxi driver, that's like a stereotype that they say.
Or your grandmother, right? When your grandmother asks you about Bitcoin, then you need to look at your portfolio and start to manage it.
Exactly. Or when they're showing it on the news again. These are like good indications of when to sell, but it's the very same thing. You want to buy when it's low, when it's at support, whatever, and you want to sell when it's high, and it's like very counterintuitive, and it's against
your instinct, right?
Your instinct,
because you not to do it.
Yeah, it's against your emotions, because you're super euphoric when it's going up very hard, and you're like very sad when it's going down. It seems like even my webcam is doing weird stuff right now. I don't know.
I think you're just dropping too much alpha. I think you're starting.
It cannot process it anymore. It's too much.
So many people are flooding to look at the altcoin gems. I mean, But no, you're right though, right? And these things, right? Look, there was a saying that I heard years ago. I can't even remember who said it now, but it was a good saying, which is time in the market cannot be replaced by money in the market, right? Now, there's a little bit of that I kind of agree and disagree with. First of all, just because you want to throw money at the market doesn't mean you'll get any returns. It just means that you can lose a lot of money very quickly, right? Education underpins everything we do, not just in trading, but as humanity. If we look at it, the people that have bettered our existence are people that learn very well, people that share information. If you find good people, learn from good people, but find a way to know who the snakes are as well. You know, there's a lot of misinformation in the realm. I personally am not someone. I've paid for a lot of my education through my life, whether that be trading focused or whether that be in other areas as well, professional qualifications, for example. But there's also a lot of good free information you can get, and that's a big reason that we like putting on the Congress. Right, we get to bring on great minds like you, Quinten, other people that come on here, and they just sharing these little things, and some of them can sound benign, but you know what? Sometimes the most simple of advice, when it's come from people that have genuinely lived it. People that have been through these cycles, people that have learned about themselves, and you learn a lot about yourself when you melt a portfolio, whether it's a few $100s or millions of dollars. When you watch that, what you spent ages and time building up, you need to say to yourself, how do I not let this happen again? My belief is that there will always be opportunity in the markets, right? And that actually what you need to do as somebody is align yourself with either an area, a niche area, somewhere you have great understanding in or a great passion to learn. Go very, very deep, and very narrow. And over time, build your knowledge of other areas, right? Don't try and learn everything at once, right? Find little bits and little gems that resonate with you, from people. Some people will find technical gems. Other people will find on-chain fundamental analysis. Things like today, people will look at that and think, do you know what? I really do need to pay more attention to the communities. Maybe that's something you're not actually doing right now. And maybe that's one of the easiest things you could go and do. You can just go along and just join these communities, find out how vibrant they are, ask them questions, see what their response time is like, look at who they're partnering with, what are their releases like, how active is their Twitter feed, right? Things like that. You don't have to invest a lot of time in. It's the kind of thing you can do on the train to work, But it's the kind of thing that overall, and also I think one of the big takeaways from Quinten today is understand where we are in the market cycle, right? If you understand that point, it's like having a trading system. People say to you, why do you not hesitate to enter there? It's like, because it met my criteria. If it meets my criteria, I'll enter. Otherwise, all of my data is skewed. I can't just pick and choose when I go in. You have to have a set of guidelines and parameters that you're going to follow. So we've absolutely chewed up an hour. A just beautiful time with my good friend Quinten here. Look, I just want to say a really, really big thank you to you, mate, for coming on. It's just been such a pleasure. And also just a huge thank you to everybody that's joined in. We've had loads of viewers coming. We've had some amazing questions. This has just absolutely gone off on Twitter. YouTube's been a joy as well. There's loads of comments that I would have missed coming in on the other social platforms as well. But just a really, really big thank you, Quinten. People, let's stay in touch with Quinten and what he's up to, right? You can see his Twitter on there at Quinten Francois. Follow him, take a look into that. If you've got any handle on the language in Dutch or Belgium, then please do grab a copy of that book. You're doing great things for the space. And just a big thank you and wish you very well for the future, my friend.
Thank you, Rhys. Thanks for having me. It was absolute pleasure of being here, and I really enjoyed it. And I think tomorrow I'm back at a panel as well. So looking forward to that.
We might even have a little bit of extra for you. We're going to see.
Yeah.
We're going to get some updates out at the end of the day. There might be some teasing things happening, moving forward, and that we'll see. We do like to keep as much value for you guys as possible, but
sure.
If not, then we're definitely going to get Quinten back on the show again soon. So. Really big thank you for me, mate. Thank you so much for everything. Everybody really loved the show. And we look forward to seeing what more exciting things you've got coming out soon as well.
Sorry, what was the last thing?
Look forward to seeing what exciting things that you are working on and that you have coming up soon.
Yeah, there is some exciting things coming. So happy to share more about that on my socials. But
awesome.
Exciting things coming for sure as well from my side.
And if this guy's going to say it, then you should pay attention. So make sure you're following him on Twitter at Quinten Francois. It's on the screen at the moment. Huge thank you again, Quinten, and a huge thank you to all our viewers. We will catch you legends on the next show, which is kicking off right now. And then after that, we will see you around the nest.